Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Bryan from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
Welcome to Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. I'm Bryan Hornung, joined as always by Randy, Bryan, and Reginald Andre. What's up, gentlemen? How we doing today?
Hey, doing well. I had a great FIFA weekend here in Miami, so that was cool.
Y'all have games in Miami?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, every week, guys, we're taking a look at these cybersecurity stories that are making the headlines, and we're going to help translate them into what it actually means for you, and if you're a business owner, especially you. So we got a big one today. I'm going to open with a story that could change how every executive looks at AI and the tools that they're using and buying today. Then we're going to look at engineers from a frontier AI. Oh, wait, no, we're not. That's the same story. I'm reading it wrong. So what happened here, guys, is we're going to get into the story where engineers from an AI company embedded themselves inside the NSA, and what that tells us about where cybersecurity and AI regulations are headed. And then, Randy, you got a story that's going to walk us through a Texas government breach that put 3 million driver's license and passport numbers in the wrong hands. And Andre, you're going to close this out with a live ongoing attack against tens of thousands of Fortinet firewalls, and one that you need to act on this week if you run Fortinet gear. So 3 stories, guys, 1 thread you'll see by the end. Let's start with the NSA using Claude Mythos for offensive cyber operations. It sounds like that's why that tool got taken off the market for everybody to use. So think about this. A private AI company puts its own people inside the NSA to help them run the model designed to help with cybersecurity, right? That's this Mythos or Mythos, however you want to say it. Goal of this thing is to find vulnerabilities. I haven't personally used it, but from what I understand, it can also exploit those vulnerabilities. And it seems like this thing can do a whole heck of a lot. And it sounds like some of the people in charge, especially of our government, want to make sure that the proper guardrails are in place before this thing goes out in the wild. And they really want to restrict access to who has access to it. I think that's going to be a massive challenge if you're going to offer this outside the government, guys. So, for I guess going on 30 years now, we've thought about cybersecurity companies as, the people who sell you the locks. And I think if you're talking about the food chain of security and cybersecurity, NSA ranks up there pretty highly, right? And I think a lot of people would think that of any wing of our government, our federal government, the NSA has things probably locked down pretty good. And that's what happened in the last couple of weeks here when the government invited Anthropic to come in with their Mythos tool. And basically they were able to put this tool in front of all their classified systems that are secured. And it only took hours for this tool to break into most of their secured access environments. So how's that make you feel, Randy?
It's a little disconcerting to say the least, but not surprising. And I will tell you what it makes me feel. Honestly, hearing all of it before, I'm like, man, what a great salesperson that CEO is over at Anthropic, saying that we've got a product so great we can't release it out into the world because it finds where everything is broken and gets right in. Well, now being from a government agency, this is no longer just good salesmanship on behalf of the CEO. they've cranked out a product that's going way beyond what the world's ready to handle right now. And being able to crack the NSA stuff in a few hours, I mean, that says something, you know, that's a big deal. So anyway, that's what it makes me think.
Yeah, and this was a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing. This is kind of where they're saying the leak came from. So this is not just some small little rumor or something like that. So I actually will have to say, last week I was talking about why the government needs to like speed things up, but now knowing in hindsight what they said, I now agree with the government doing this, because obviously, you know, this would be for national interest.
It's very interesting because we don't really. There's a lot. I mean, if you read all the stories, there's, you know, just obviously going down the path of a conspiracy theory path in some of these things, where there's people claiming that because our government doesn't necessarily like this AI company for certain reasons,
Right.
they've outlawed them to be used in the federal government. However, the NSA, I'm getting feedback from somebody, and the NSA went and got a special exception to use this tool anyway. And then they were able to implement it inside of their environment. And, you know, basically they were the ones who came out and said, you know, it's too dangerous. So last week, guys, we talked about how it was reported that Amazon, you know, kind of ran to the White House or ran to the federal government and said, hey, we got to take this down for this, that reason. And now we have a second entity, a second story who's like, hey, we were using it too, and this is the fallout from that. So it's crazy, you know, first off, when you hear the maker of a tool telling us it's too dangerous to share, yeah, it's great marketing. It's also scary because where is this going in the future for you guys? Do you guys see concern with this? I guess that's my question. And what the concern I'm asking you about is, these tools are out here, we're buying them, we're implementing them in our businesses. And at what point can they go back and say, you can't use it, right? You got to turn it off, right? I mean, and we're talking about these powerful models, right? But what if the next version of ChatGPT, Anthropic, or whatever comes out, and then everybody starts using it, and then something like this happens maybe 6 months down the road because somebody figures out how to use the tool in a way that maybe it wasn't initially designed for, but it took them, you know, a few months to figure out, hey, if I do this, do that, I can now use this tool in this way, which now somebody in, say, the government doesn't like, you know, and then they shut it down on businesses. Where does that fall for you guys?
Well, so I mentioned it a little bit last week because we talked a little bit just about the initial pullback of Mythos and Fable, which is their street version of it. And for me, what I would say for every business, if you're doing vibe coding and you're using AI for automation, blah, 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 the word you need to remember is deterministic. And you want to use it to write scripts to run everything where it doesn't require AI. Do that as much as possible, because you're right, Bryan, like even in the 3 days that Fable was out, the word on the street was it was doing things that the previous version would poop the bed on, you know, but it was doing things, complex things that take a long time, that require multiple stages, blah, 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 all the things we've been kind of complaining about. Mm-hmm. Just in 3 days, people were figuring that out, and then they pulled it back. That is right. A very, very, very real reality that you could come to rely on a specific AI or even AI in general, and then it gets pulled back for some reason like this. Yeah. Bottom line is, when you're using it, use it as much as you can to write scripts that don't require AI down the road. And so when it does get pulled back, because that's pretty scary thinking, man. You connect everything instead of writing scripts to automate your company. You connect everything to Fable or whatever, and it's all working like a champ. And then it gets pulled back because, somebody jailbroke it or whatever. So great question.
So real quick, I'll follow up on that because I like how you were kind of laying that out. What do you mean when you say, just try to go layman's, when you say like don't build your scripts or build your code so it doesn't rely on AI? What should the company be doing there?
Right. So that's why I said the word, which I learned from an AI programming just in the last like 2 months or month, but the word deterministic. If you tell the AI when you're working up your automation, solving your problems, tell it to be deterministic as much as possible. For example, I was using it to help triage our tickets, and I had told it be deterministic as possible. So what it did, instead of having an API call to AI to triage a ticket, it wrote this gigantic database of like pre-written responses that doesn't require any AI at all. It's just all scripting. And a ticket comes in, and it's like a small language model almost, and it just goes back and forth in this little database and puts out a triage that sounds like it was written by a person, but it's not, and it doesn't use AI. So that's the thing I'm saying. If you tell it, layman's terms would be have it do as much as it can via script instead of via AI. So use the AI to write the program, and then rely on the AI as little as possible. And also, that's really the most efficient way to do it as well, because AI takes tokens, which are money, power, water, whatever you want to think of them as. AI takes all of that. So if you can write the program to do it instead of having AI to have to do it, you're going to use less tokens. You're going to be more efficient, save that money, save that water, save power, whatever it is.
Andre, any thoughts there? You good?
Yeah, no, I have two. So the first one is I'm hoping Anthropic comes back to them and says, well, we have a solution to help you, in the sense of like, this is what we can sell you against other AIs. And then the second thought I was going to make is like, if a small business owner listening to this podcast right now, what do they do? Because even if we put EDR, we put zero trust, like, with these type of tools out there, outside of air gapping and putting your data not on the internet, how else are you going to be able to protect your business from these type of things? Because I don't really see a way. And I know air gapping and putting your data offline is not a viable solution in today's world, but like, how does a business owner protect their data from these AI models just bypassing every single security solution that we've put for them?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to risk, right? If we think about risk at the end of the day, we've always tried to manage that, especially on the cyber and compliance side of the business, right? And this introduces just a different kind of risk. You're thinking about it, Andre, from the standpoint of like, what can this tool do? And if the tool is used against my business or used nefariously within my business, how do we handle that? What do we do about it? What are the controls? Things like that. We've never really been since technology's kind of been adopted in business and used the way it is today. So we're going on about 30 years of that now. We've never been told by the government that we can't use something that's been put out, right? It'd be like if Windows was put out and the government's like, well, you can't use Windows. It's too good. You can't use Microsoft Word. It's too good, right? And the stuff I'm saying sounds preposterous, but that's what we're embarking on. Mm-hmm. A world that we've never been in before with technology, because we've always kind of been allowed to use whatever's thrown out there, even on the dark web, right? And now you're starting to see that system of control that's put in place, and we rarely hear people crying about freedom of the internet anymore, like we used to, and that's because what you're seeing playing out, I guess, the people who are helping push the AI, they are seeing the threats and they want to be able to control that, and they don't want the people to get access to the level of computing power that these tools can release for some reason. I got a real problem with that because I've grown up with this free and clear internet for everybody, and everybody should have access to it. And like, you know, right now, if I shove away this AI conversation, if I want to access something on the internet, I probably can, right? Even if it's blocked by something, I probably have ways to get, like, they are cutting this off at a level that's very interesting now, that's never happened before, right? And even when you see social media sites being rolled out, different features rolled out, nobody's ever been really told, like, hey, you can't roll out that feature, you got to take that down. So now there's been public backlash to things where companies have decided this was a bad idea, we're going to phase it out, we're not going to, you know, put much emphasis on it anymore. But I've never seen it where the companies can shut off a complete model and cut off access to something like this. And if we don't push back on these types of things, it's only going to get worse down the road.
In a capitalist market, you can't put the handcuffs on Anthropic, because then it's only a matter of time till, you know, China, Russia, whoever is able to develop it, and then now they're better than us, and now we're behind them, you know. So right. Maybe you let the cards play, and now that we know that this tool is possible, someone needs to come up with a better solution for encryption, or, you know, whatever the thing is, and it may just be a little pain.
I'm gonna get on my soapbox and end it here, right? Because this show has been going, we're what, 5.5 years now, Andre? Is that right? About, right? And we've been saying since day one that businesses don't do enough around cybersecurity, and they haven't invested enough over the years. We've been saying it since the show started, week after week. We rarely, there's probably been maybe 24 weeks where we didn't say those words on this show. Like, businesses aren't doing enough, they're not investing enough. These tools are just exposing that, right? And unfortunately, this is like the big boogeyman. Everybody's scared of cybersecurity. The other thing that AI is going to expose, guys, and we've talked about this, yes, weak cybersecurity, but weak processes inside your business, weak structure inside your business. Yep. If you think that you can run your business from the seat of your pants in the world of AI, I got news for you. It's going to get exposed. We were already seeing it with companies who are trying to implement AI, and they don't have strong processes put in place. So I don't look at it any different, right? If you're being exposed on cybersecurity side, probably means you have weak processes there, but more than likely, you probably have weak processes in other parts of your business that AI is also going to expose, but nobody seems to be focusing in on that as far as shutting those things down. But that's happening right now.
I wanted to respond to something Andre said, but also you're totally right, Bryan. Like, weak processes plus AI equals chaos. And so we engaged a company in May to help with this. And that was the first thing that came out in our first talk. And they're like, okay, guys, we're going to go and get our processes nailed down before we even talk about bringing AI into the mess. But Andre, you know, we always talk about on our show also that cybersecurity is a journey and not a destination. And what just happened with all of this is what is cybersecurity is now changing, because now people are bringing AI into the mix. And what does that look like? What does that create? What risk does that open up? What's that AI agent doing while it's doing its thing? What's that CEO doing who's behind that prompt in Claude code and all that jazz? It's totally changing the picture of what exactly entails cybersecurity for a business.
Yep. And technology. I mean, I don't know where this is going to go, but this is going to get interesting. And I think a lot of businesses are going to be caught flat-footed, playing catch up.
Yep.
I'm also seeing it, guys. Just before I move on, I mean, AI is helping with this third-party risk that we've been talking about. Like, I'm seeing it like crazy, where companies are using AI to evaluate people's responses to things like third-party security questionnaires. And then not only that, you're starting to see language get amped up, modified, more strict when these new contracts come out, in terms of what they want to be able to access, what they want to be able to see, and what they want to be able to audit you on. So watch your contracts, because we're seeing some pretty broad language being used in terms of like, hey, if you have a problem, if you get hacked, we can come in and do our own kind of investigation on whatever we want. And like, you got to be aware that that language is written like that, and scale that down, right? Because if your business has multiple clients, right, I have no issue if you want to look at your data, if your information, but you're not going to look at my whole entire companies, including my other clients and things like that. That's where you got to watch with these questionnaires, and when they say they want to audit your network and look at things if there's ever a problem between the two of you, right? And where does that come into play? We talk about this all the time in third-party breaches, right? Your business, it materially impacts the company that is asking you, what are you doing, right? So you're saying you're going to deliver a product or a service to them, or at a certain amount by a certain date. If you can't deliver and it impacts their business and they decide to sue you, that's where these kinds of things kick in, and they start to want to know, like, what were you doing with your security that led you to get here? And if we determine there's gross negligence, then we're going to, come after you, essentially. And we see it all the time now. So companies are starting, especially the big ones, are really starting to protect themselves when it comes to these third-party breaches, guys. And your two stories are going to talk about kind of where those things come from and what they lead to. So, Randy, you got this story out of Texas, where 3 million people who just wanted to go fishing ended up exposed. What's going on here in Texas?
Right. Well, so turns out, okay, this is going to be a shocker. Turns out that the state of Texas is using a third party to help them sign up for their hunting and fishing licenses. And so basically it was the third party that got hacked, and a bunch of information, like the graphic said, did go out the door. This appears, we don't know 100% yet, this is really fresh, this appears to be potentially the same thing that happened. I believe it was in Virginia very, very recently as well. That third party, which was hacked, which does provide licenses for states, people that hunt and fish in states, that vendor has been identified. But so far, this vendor has not been identified. And what we're looking at driver's license information, passport numbers, email addresses, phone numbers, residential addresses. So the state is officially saying that, they always say things. I'm not talking about the state in general, but when things like this happen, it's like they say things to kind of get you to look the other way. So they said in this, it doesn't look like any customers under the age of 18 were involved. Like, oh, okay, so it's not so bad. Like, why did they throw that in there? And then the other thing that they said was no specific group was targeted. So their official statement is no one under 18 and no specific group was targeted. Like that literally doesn't affect anything or how I feel or think about this particular breach. To me, those are just like red herrings to, let's throw them over here and we'll go look over there and go, okay, good. It didn't affect this group, or didn't affect, no one was targeted or whatever. The other thing that really disturbs me, so I'm a resident of the state of Texas. I also hunt and fish and have a license to do so. And every ding dang time I have to do my renewal, I have to put in my social security number. And they're officially saying that those were not breached, but that's literally required for me to renew. I think there might be some ways around it, but y'all know what I'm talking about when I say ever since I first started getting a license almost, I'm like, why in the crap do they need that? Why aren't they giving me like a special ID or something like that? Or even give me like a driver's license or something like that, which they may have added that in the last few years. I'm not sure.
In Jersey, we have a conservation ID number, but I don't know what that is. And you like
exactly.
when you go to that website, you can put that in or your social security number. I mean, what do you think I'm going to
enter your social to recover your conservation ID? Right. There you go. Anyway, short story long. This affected about 3 million people, and we don't know, like I said, who the third party is. The details are a little bit sparse on this. They're offering 1 year of credit monitoring. I would go back to the soapbox that I normally get on is you really need to freeze your credit. And the way you do that, there's 3 main credit report bureaus in the United States. If you just Google, how do I freeze my Experian or whatever, go to their website, they'll walk you through it. Like literally, if you try to open up a new account, it should block you until you go in and unfreeze it or whatever. That's really the thing to do. Like the credit monitoring is all fine and great, but that just means that your credit is wide open and anybody can open an account, and then you'll find out after the fact, and then you got to go in and shut everything down. It's a whole lot easier on the front end just to freeze everything. Just freeze it and stop it from happening in the first place. So what do y'all thought?
Don't go to that phishing email or the Google. Don't Google phishing and then put in your social and give it to the bad guy. But one thing I did ask chat while you were talking, Randy, was how many years do they think this database of 3 million customers was? How many years was it? And they're estimating based on it being a smaller group of your 30 million people in Texas, they're estimating anywhere from 10 to 15 years of license records.
Right.
So this is a lot of zombie information. You remember, Randy, when you came, over to Florida and you wanted to fish and you did your fishing license, and but it's like these could have just been one and done people too, right? So why hold all this information? And we say it every time in this podcast when we hear it. It's like, do you really need someone's information after a certain amount of years? I'm sure there's even a statute of limitation that if you did do something illegal and they needed to see if you had a license or not, that it wouldn't matter after 7 years, for example, or whatever the case is. So this just goes back to how long do you hold data, purging, archiving, taking things offline. And apparently this was all clear text as well. The fact that, they were able to just gather this information without having to, say it was encrypted or something, because that would have been the nice thing. Like, yeah, they got the data, but don't worry, it's encrypted. Now, of course, we know what we talked about in the last article about AI, but nevertheless, at least it would have been encrypted. So in this case, this third party, and why aren't they naming the third party? Like Texas is getting the brunt of this, but if I was Texas, I would have been like, we're using these guys, and all these other states, you make sure you don't use these guys either, because they just screwed our residents, our citizens.
Yeah, it may not. Maybe they don't know for sure at this point. I'm not sure why. I wasn't seeing any information about that. Although, like I said, this happened, I think, in Virginia already, and the vendor was released in that. But we don't know for sure if this is the same vendor. So
right. What I mean though is like, is it only like if it's the vendor, did the bad guys only get into the Texas database? Or like you would think it's most of the states, or so.
Right.
I'm pretty sure most of these states are using pretty close to the same company. I wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
And this is one of those things where, like, Yeah, Texas might be the first one to know, or somebody in Texas reported something weird. Who knows? And now other states are going to follow suit, right? And their DPs will start announcing things as well. So, we'll keep you updated as this thing kind of moves along. But Randy, one thing you pointed out is kind of like the look over here type of thing. And your comment when you said no social security numbers are taken, I kind of thought the same thing there too, because it's like, that's great, but driver's licenses, passports, home addresses, that's already enough of an identity theft kit that a criminal needs to do something to you. So, don't take any solace in the fact when they say no social security numbers were taken, right? Randy questions it. I agree. But also from the standpoint of they already have enough information, and right. And I'm sure your social security numbers out there where they could cross-reference it with another hack and have a pretty good shot at getting it anyway.
Yeah, I mentioned about 2 months ago, one of our customers received looked like an official notice via text with their driver's license number. And it was basically saying you owed X amount of dollars, for a toll fee that you didn't pay. And they were wanting like $14,000. And then they got a little suspicious and called me. But bottom line is that it can be totally used for stuff like that. Now they have your driver's license number. Now they can use AI to send you a really good looking, what looks like an official notification that you owe some fine. And depending on their sophistication, they might try to get $14,000 from you, or maybe they get $200 from you, but bottom line is, you're right. It's just because it's not social, that doesn't mean that it's not a big deal, getting passport information and driver's license information, along with your email address, your phone number, and your residential address. So, buckle up, be prepared, brace yourself. You're going to get some pretty real looking targeted phishing things here soon from that.
Yep. Things that look, text messages, emails, things that look like they're coming from, Texas phishing, whatever, if it has Texas and phishing in it, be careful. Hunting as well, right? So, all right. Andre's story is going to bring us this week is about the front door, I guess, in your own network. That's a good way to put it. If there's one device, I guess, all of us here trust to keep the bad guys out, it's that little pesky firewall, right? And right now, this particular manufacturer, who seems to have lots of problems with their firewalls, has a problem with tens of thousands of them. And it's been reported that a lot of them, the locks have already been picked. So, Andre, this one's yours. Sounds urgent. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, the locks are picked on both sides. So we have Fortinet, which is a firewall company. They are saying that about 75,000 devices across 194 countries. But how I was talking about the locks are picked on both sides is because what we're seeing is both the VPN logins and the firewall administrators, the administrator login. So typically when an administrator needs to make a change, he goes to a web portal, he puts in his username and his password, and he can make all the changes there. And that's a big deal because from there, the attackers can do a lot of things. They can create new VPN accounts, they can open up firewall ports, they can disable security settings, and they can create backdoors, monitor traffic, a whole lot of things because they're essentially the administrator. So, and then on the second side, we're seeing that on the VPN side, we're seeing that they also have the username and passwords. So if they can now have the VPN access, they can now log in as a legitimate employee and be able to access all the file share servers and applications. So this is a big problem for Fortinet, but Fortinet is saying, no, this is not us. This is the client that has some type of malware, some type of info stealer or something like that. They're reusing passwords. And this is how it's happening. It's not because our database, we don't store passwords. We don't have this. So this is some type of this is basically a situation where the client, for whatever reason, the end user, let's call it, their data is now been compromised, and therefore we're in this situation. So this could not only be Fortinet, this could be a lot of other devices, but they found these uncovered stolen credentials for 75,000 people. And interesting enough, what would fix all of this? Two-form factor authentication would have been able to fix that.
Do we know how they got in? Was it just from using like leaked passwords, or is it some unknown vulnerability?
No, Fortinet is saying it's not any vulnerability or breach. They're basically saying that the end user has some type of malware, info stealer. They're reusing the passwords, and all of this data was uncovered because I guess they found an Excel spreadsheet or something like that in the dark web. But basically the bad guys are using it.
Yeah, I just found a website, hudsonrock.com/Fortinet, gives you a list of all the domains that are affected, which is pretty crazy. Right there, top of the list, there's a Spotify right when you go in. That's crazy. Samsung, Sony, Oracle, Alibaba, Huawei, Indian government, Lenovo, FedEx, ADP. There's a lot of consequential domains that are listed in this this breach, and hopefully those people all get the word and get out there and get that fixed.
So one of the things that I find interesting with these criminals, and it illustrates just how organized these groups typically are, at least when they attack and decide who to attack. And we talk about that a lot on the show, right? Why do they attack? They're never too small to be attacked, right? So these guys just aren't going around grabbing passwords, and they literally built a shopping catalog, ranked everyone by how much ransom they could squeeze out based on the company's revenue, right? So they already did the research to figure out what the company's revenue was, and then they're just going down the list, right? So that's ransomware target selection, preloaded in a system for these guys to probably start using with AI, right? So nobody is on this list is gonna, it doesn't matter how big you are, right? Yeah, they're going to start with the bigger companies and ask for the bigger amounts, but they'll eventually get to the little companies too and ask for 100,000, 80,000, 60,000, whatever, right? So everybody who's on this list needs to do the things that Andre pointed out, which is rotate your credentials, make sure you have multi-factor turned on these devices and on these logins, and get them management page, the page to log into this stuff, off the open internet. Put it behind something, VPN, SASE, multi-factor, obviously, but do it this week because you're already on the list and they're already exploiting this.
This will be definitely, if we do like the top 10, cyber hacks of 2026, this is definitely going to be in it, because the residual on this, right? Like we're going to start talking about articles in a few weeks and months of companies that got hacked, and it's all going to point back to this.
Yep.
Good point.
I mean, we've seen it plenty of times on this show throughout the years, right? Where these hacks happen, and then we kind of know like this one's going to be one that's out there that people aren't going to pay attention to, or just the nature of how you see it technology rolled out, right? And Fortinet, for whatever reason, just like SonicWall, tends to be one of those devices that small businesses buy from an IT person, but it's like they have them set it up, and then as long as it's working and the internet's working, nobody has anybody managing it, making sure it's updated, all those types of things. So it's all those businesses out there who don't realize they're on this list, that don't realize they're going to be targeted, that don't have this device managed by somebody. And they're going to find out one day that the importance of having somebody look after a device like their firewall around the clock when these criminals bust into their networks and probably steal all their data. That's how this is going to play out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, good discussion today. Let's talk about what we discussed today, because at the top we talked about these AI cyber tools, especially the most powerful ones on Earth, being locked up inside governments and frontier labs, not allowing the public to access them as we thought they would. So it's interesting where this will go, who will actually be in charge of AI's risk, because it's a new frontier for businesses, because usually you've been left to your own devices and left for you to figure out how to protect yourselves from the threats that are out there today. But now with AI, the government's decided that this threat's too much and we need to step in. And then in the middle here, Randy brought us the attention of these simple systems like registering to be allowed to fish and hunt caused 3 million people to lose their most personal data, not because they did anything wrong, but because a vendor they never chose to trust had a problem. And Andre, the very devices we count on to protect us got their keys stolen and sorted by how much we're worth, right? And these criminals are going to target these companies based on their revenue size. So what that tells us is security is becoming the excuse to who controls and holds power. It's very interesting. Down at your level, security is still about getting the basics done. And because you can't do the basics, the government feels like now they have to control your AI. That's pretty crazy to me. Understand we live in a world where the tools are getting more powerful, more political, and your job hasn't changed. Your control over vendors, your control over credentials, your control over these devices, and never assuming someone else is taking care of it for you is what's at question here. So we're in a world where the most powerful security tools are being locked up, but your basics are not. Right. And that's the thing that drives me crazy, guys, as we wrap up here. It's like all we have to do is the basic stuff and nobody's going to be shutting down these AI tools on us. But we can't do that. So now we got to have somebody put training wheels on our businesses while we figure out this technology, which I don't like. So that's our show. If you found the show useful, head over to our website, which I think is currently being looked at right now, but it'll be back up soon. Check out our website over at securitysquawk.com and subscribe wherever you listen or watch this. Follow us and do us a favor. If you're listening to us on a podcast or over on YouTube, leave us a review because it genuinely helps more business owners find this content. Huge thanks to my co-hosts, Randy, Bryan, and Reginald Andre, for breaking down these stories with me every week. We'll see everyone next week on Security Squawk. I think same time, same place, right, guys? It's the business of cybersecurity. Stay safe out there.
Bye, everybody.